You are seeing this now, not because of accident, not because of curiosity, but because God knew you were finally ready. Not ready for comfort, not ready for inspiration, but ready for command. Ready to stop pretending you don't know what to do. Ready to stop delaying obedience. Ready to rise. The world will not wait for you. Heaven will not wait for you. Your mind is listening, and your time, your real time, begins the moment you say, I will no longer wait. This is not a moment for motivation. This is a moment for decision. And if you will listen to the end, you will never be the same man again. You did not arrive here by mistake. This did not appear because you were curious, bored, or drifting through another moment of thoughtless consumption. Number, you are hearing this now because the hour has come for your delay to be judged, your excuses to be burned, and your obedience to finally begin. This message would not have found you if you were not, at last, prepared to obey it. You were kept from this until you were ready. Do not misunderstand me. God does not delay. Infinite intelligence does not forget. The principle of purpose which moves through every great achievement does not slumber. The delay has not been divine. It has been yours. Readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is not comfort. Readiness is obedience to truth already revealed. You have known for some time what must be done. You have known what you've been instructed to begin. You've heard the inner voice that said, move. But instead of moving, you paused. Instead of obeying, you waited for confirmation. And when no sign came, you said, I guess it's not the right time. But time is not what you were missing. You were missing decision. Let me be clear. God does not repeat himself. The call to rise is not given again and again. It is issued once. And if you do not move, you remain. If you do not decide, you drift. And if you do not obey, your opportunity is passed to the next man who will. The moment you delay, you begin to train your mind to doubt the very voice that gave you instruction. This is why you have felt lost. Not because you lack purpose, but because you disobeyed the call. And disobedience always leads to disorientation. You said you were waiting on God, but you were not. You were waiting on comfort. You wanted certainty, applause, signs in the sky. But success does not come to the man who seeks comfort. It comes to the man who moves in faith. Let me remind you of the truth I discovered and wrote clearly. Faith is the only known antidote for failure. But faith is not belief without evidence. It is movement without delay. Faith is not spiritual emotion. Faith is obedience backed by action. Before the conditions are convenient, before the road is visible, before the timing feels perfect. Faith does not whisper. It commands. And it waits to see who will obey. If you are hearing this now, it is not because the world changed. It is because you changed. Something in you finally rose. Something in you said, no more delay. And now, this message has answered you. This message is not an introduction. It is a confrontation. You know what you must begin. You know the idea, the path, the instruction you've been sitting on. You know the voice that has stirred you in the early hours of the morning. You know the truth you have avoided while searching for more information. You do not need more. You need to obey what you already know. You were not kept from this because you were behind. You were kept from this because God does not give new instruction to the man who disobeys the first command. You were being tested, not with pain, but with silence, not with confusion, but with clarity left unanswered. You were being watched to see if you would decide. And now, because something in you has decided, the door has opened. But if you do not walk through it, it will close again. The opportunity does not linger for the hesitant. The power does not wait for the polite. What you do next will confirm whether you are ready or whether you were simply curious. You do not need another sign. This is it. You do not need more time. You've had enough. You do not need to be reminded again. You need to move. You must now abandon every phrase that has kept you still. I'll start soon. No, you begin now. I need more clarity. No, you already know enough. Maybe later. No, there is no later. This is the hour. and it will not come again. I must tell you something I've learned through the fire of experience. God will not push the man who refuses to walk. Infinite intelligence will not override your will. The call has been given, and it is now up to you to prove that you were not merely intrigued, but prepared. Because a man who is truly ready does not hesitate. He does not ask again. He does not wait to feel aligned. He does not retreat for another sign. He moves. And when he moves, the universe aligns. When he decides, the resources appear. When he obeys, the how begins to unfold. But none of it begins until you begin. This is the moment you stop calling preparation patience. This is the moment you stop calling your avoidance wisdom. This is the moment you stop calling your fear discernment. You must now call delay by its real name, disobedience. You were not waiting, you were hiding. And now that you've been found, you will never be the same. Say this aloud, not softly, but with power. I was not forgotten, I was being prepared, and now I move. Again, I was not forgotten, I was being prepared, and now I move. Let that phrase become the funeral of hesitation. Let it bury the version of you that made peace with procrastination. Let it raise the voice of a man who no longer explains why he hasn't started. He starts. You were kept from this until you were ready. Now that you are ready, prove it. Faith, in its purest and most powerful form, is not a feeling. It is not a hope. It is not a warm sense of future possibility. Faith is obedient action in the absence of certainty. It is motion without proof. It is movement when no applause is given. It is the decision to begin when no guarantee exists, because the command was heard, and the soul refuses to delay. The world has confused faith with emotion, but true faith is not emotional. It is instructional. It commands before it comforts. It demands before it rewards. Faith is not soft. Faith is not poetic. Faith is war against delay. And every time a man waits after knowing what to do, he is not showing wisdom. He is confessing doubt. Let me say this with fire. Your faith is not seen in what you believe. Your faith is seen in what you begin. A man may speak of purpose. He may recite affirmations. He may declare what he will one day do. But if he remains still, his faith is not real, because faith, if it is alive, moves. The man who delays says, I am waiting for clarity. But clarity is not what produces action. Action is what produces clarity. You do not move because you are certain. You move because you decided. You obey because it is time. And as you walk, the way becomes clear, not before. Most men wait to feel qualified. They wait to feel strong. They wait to feel called a second time. But let me tell you, God does not call a second time. The instruction was given. The door opened. And if you do not move through it, you teach your subconscious that hesitation is acceptable. And if you do that long enough, you will forget how to move at all. But when a man obeys, everything changes. Not because his world becomes easier, but because his identity begins to rise. A man who acts, even in weakness, begins to teach his inner mind that he is not a beggar, he is not a coward, he is not a servant to fear, he is one who moves when instructed. Abraham Lincoln was not the man the world expected. He lost. He failed. He was mocked, doubted, broken by tragedy. Yet he obeyed his call. Not because the path was easy, but because the voice within him spoke louder than the ridicule around him. He was not moved by how he felt. He was moved by the weight of responsibility, and because of that, he rose, not as a man of charm, but as a man of unyielding moral command. What about you? What instruction have you been given that you keep postponing? What idea came to you in silence, but you've buried it beneath doubt? What motion have you been commanded to make, but you're still sitting, still waiting, still asking God to speak again? Let me be very clear. God is not silent. You are stalling. The instruction has already been given. The aim has already been written. The voice has already spoken. And every day you postpone is not a pause. It is rebellion in slow motion. It is the erosion of belief. You must move. even before you feel ready, especially before the world agrees. Faith is not something you prepare. It is something you prove. Do not wait to feel worthy. Do not wait to be applauded. Do not wait for the conditions to be perfect. Do not wait for certainty. Faith is the act of walking when your legs still tremble. And let me tell you a secret. God does not qualify the man who waits. God qualifies the man who acts. Heaven aligns with movement. The resources come to those who are already building. Power flows where obedience is demonstrated. This is spiritual law, and it does not change for the man who asks nicely. The longer you wait, the more your confidence dies, and the voice that once called you, if ignored long enough, will grow silent, not because it changed, but because you trained yourself to stop listening. But if you act, if you obey, if you move when everything in you says, maybe tomorrow, then something begins to shift, not only in your outer life, but in your soul. Your voice becomes stronger, your mind becomes sharper, your posture becomes aligned with decision, and the world begins to bend, not because it pities you, but because it recognizes that you've become the man who obeys. Let me give you this now. Say it aloud, not passively, but as a man drawing a line. I no longer wait for signs. I move with the faith I've been given. Again, I no longer wait for signs. I move with the faith I've been given. Let this become your new rhythm. Speak it when you stall. Speak it when the old voice says, wait just a little longer. Speak it when fear knocks, because fear will knock. Delay will whisper. But you are not who you were. You are no longer waiting to feel worthy. You are no longer waiting to be ready. You are already ready, because you were already told what to do. From this moment forward, your faith is no longer a theory, it is a walk. And you do not stop walking, not until the vision becomes visible, not until your hands hold the result of what your spirit has already believed. Now move. There is a time to ask. There is a time to learn. There is a time to seek understanding. But once the instruction has been given, once the vision has been revealed, that time ends. From that moment forward, any delay is no longer humility. It is not wisdom. It is not patience. It is rebellion in disguise, because the man who has been told what to do but refuses to begin is no longer ignorant. He is disobedient. Let me speak this plainly. God does not repeat himself. Infinite intelligence does not shout what has already been whispered. If you were told to move, then you must move. If the vision was made clear, even once, even briefly, then that is your instruction. And the more you wait, the more you weaken. The more you delay, the more your mind begins to believe that permission is required when it has already been given. Stop asking for what you already have. The moment of clarity that stirred you weeks ago, the idea that woke you in the night, the persistent inner command that keeps returning, that was permission. And your subconscious is watching, listening, recording what you do with what you know. Every day that you stall, it hears, he does not trust himself. Every time you explain why you haven't started, it records, he requires outside approval to obey inner truth. And soon your own mind begins to resist you. This is how hesitation becomes identity. It does not arrive overnight. It is installed gradually through unanswered instruction. And the only way to break it is with one act of decisive movement. The world is full of men who are still waiting to be told again. They wait for someone to validate the decision they already made. They wait for the moment to feel more official. They say, I just want confirmation. But confirmation is cowardice when you already know what to do. You do not need another opinion. You do not need another sign. You need to decide that you are the kind of man who no longer asks a second time. There is a law I have written plainly and with emphasis. Initiative is the first step that turns desire into destiny. Without initiative, desire rots. Purpose fades. Clarity dissolves. It is not enough to dream. It is not enough to know. Many men know what to do, but they are buried in cemeteries with plans they never began. Their lives were paused at the threshold of permission, and the door never opened not because it was locked, but because they refused to turn the handle. You must now adopt a new code. From this day forward, you do not seek permission to begin. You do not ask the world to agree. You do not delay until the conditions are blessed by others. You bless them with movement. And let me show you this in action. Thomas Edison failed more times than the world could count. He did not succeed because the path was easy. He succeeded because he did not ask for permission to keep failing. He gave himself command. Every failure was not a setback. It was part of his instructional obedience. He decided once, and that decision ruled him until the result was born. That is how builders think. That is how men of faith move. And they do not ask again. They act again. They do not consult the crowd. They command themselves. They do not wait for consensus. They obey the original voice. You must do the same. And when the doubt rises, as it will not retreat for a second opinion. You will not call 10 men to confirm your calling. You will say one sentence aloud with conviction. I do not ask again. I act now. Say it. I do not ask again. I act now. Let that phrase become your shield against hesitation. Let it silence the question that returns too often. Am I ready? You were ready the moment the command arrived. You were ready the moment you knew. And if you wait again, you risk teaching your soul that your words mean nothing. The man who acts becomes a magnet for strength. His voice grows sharper. His pace grows faster. He does not ask what to do next. He moves, and the next step appears. But the man who waits shrinks. His confidence dies. His energy decays. And his mind, once sharp, becomes a fogged window of abandoned instruction. You must choose which man you will be. And the choice is not made with thought. It is made with motion. Now I give you this charge. From this moment on, every time you hear the voice of purpose within you, you move, you write, you build, you begin. You do not retreat into figuring it out. You trust that clarity will come through obedience. The only man who is lost is the man who delays what he already knows. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are simply waiting for permission you've already been given. So speak this again. I do not ask again, I act now. Say it until the hesitation breaks. Say it until your mind no longer seeks approval. Say it until the world obeys the rhythm of your decision. Because you no longer ask. You lead. A man's future is not written in his circumstances. It is not handed to him by others. It is spoken into being by his own mouth with conviction and with repetition backed by belief. The world may resist you. Circumstance may oppose you. But if your voice commands your subconscious with discipline, you will become what you declare. The subconscious mind does not think. It does not reason. It does not argue. It only obeys. And it obeys what is repeated with emotion. Speak weakness long enough, and you will live as a weak man. Speak fear, and fear becomes your master. But if you speak belief, and you speak it with persistence and clarity, your mind begins to bend your habits, your attention, and your very identity to match the command. This is not theory. This is autosuggestion. It is the principle by which every success is built. It is the tool by which the unseen becomes seen. It is how the man who once doubted himself begins to speak with fire, walk with direction, and act with power. He told his subconscious who he was, until it believed him. But let me be precise, autosuggestion is not mumbling, it is not casual, it is not a game. It is the discipline of installing truth into the subconscious by declaring it out loud until action and speech align. You must now begin this practice, not tomorrow. Now, you will speak your chief aim aloud daily. You will write and repeat your identity script. You will do this not to feel inspired, but to program the mental machinery that governs everything you do. At the top of a blank page, write, I am the type of man who... Then complete that sentence with clear declarations that reflect the identity you have chosen, not the identity you inherited, not the identity others gave you, but the identity you have now commanded. Examples. I am the type of man who obeys purpose without delay. I am the type of man who speaks belief and proves it with action. I am the type of man who finishes what he begins. I am the type of man who feeds his mind only what builds. These are not words. These are bricks. Every time you speak them aloud, you lay another block in the foundation of your new self. Every word repeated with conviction becomes law in the subconscious. And once the law is accepted, you will begin to obey it automatically. Charles M. Schwab did not rise to leadership by waiting. He was not born with authority. He was not handed belief. He acted before the title. He spoke strength before others agreed. He installed his identity through initiative, through movement, and through inner conviction repeated in action. That is why Carnegie trusted him. That is why industry followed him, because he became the man he declared himself to be. You must now do the same. Speak your identity script aloud every morning and every night. Do not whisper it. Declare it. Let your voice hear your decision. Let your ears submit to your standard. Let your subconscious be reminded who is in charge. This is not emotional. This is mechanical. The subconscious is a soil. It accepts what is planted. If you plant indecision, it grows hesitation. If you plant fear, it grows anxiety. But if you plant purpose, belief, command, and feed it daily, it grows identity. Let me give you the process now. Write your identity script. Complete the phrase, I am the type of man who, with 3 to 5 truths. Speak it aloud morning and evening, always after your chief aim. Repeat with emotion. Stand, breathe deep, declare, align behavior. Let no action contradict what you spoke. Return to it when you falter. Speak it louder when your old voice rises. This is how you install who you are, not through ambition, but through word and repetition. You do not wait to feel it. You become it by declaring it into being. Say this aloud. I speak with power. I repeat what builds me. I become what I declare. Again, I speak with power. I repeat what builds me. I become what I declare. Let this phrase become your spiritual law, because it is not enough to think differently. You must speak differently, and speak it until you act differently, and act until you live differently. You are no longer hoping for change. You are now becoming by repetition, and your voice is the tool. Do not speak weakness again. Do not speak uncertainty again. Do not speak delay again. From this moment forward, your lips are instruments of construction, and your identity is rising, one word at a time. Every man is confronted with 2 prices, the price of risk or the cost of delay. One requires courage. The other demands everything you are and gives nothing back but regret. One builds identity. The other destroys it slowly, silently, until the man who once believed he could becomes the man who explains why he never did. You must understand now, the cost of delay is always greater than the risk of obedience. Every day you wait, the man you were born to become drifts further from you. Every moment of hesitation pushes you farther from the path that was revealed to you. And you may say, but I'm just preparing. But what you call preparation, your mind registers as avoidance. You may say, but I need to be sure. But what you call wisdom, your subconscious hears as indecision. You do not build your future by postponement. You build it by obedience without hesitation. Success demands risk, not recklessness, but risk. It requires that you move without knowing everything. It requires that you act in the presence of uncertainty, that you begin before the outcome is guaranteed. The man who demands absolute clarity before beginning will never begin, because clarity is not what leads obedience. Obedience is what leads clarity. I have seen many men with great plans, many with ambition, but only a few had the power to act while uncertain. Only a few had the courage to move while the voice of fear still echoed. And those few, those men, became the ones who shaped the world around them, not because they were more talented, but because they refused to wait. Let me give you an example the world cannot ignore, Henry Ford. Ford believed in something no one else believed in. He envisioned an engine design that every trained engineer said could not exist. When he commanded his team to build an 8-cylinder engine, they said it was impossible. They returned with failure. Ford said, "Build it anyway." Again they returned with resistance. Again he commanded, "Continue." And eventually, because he believed and refused to delay, they succeeded. Not because the thing was easy, but because Ford obeyed his vision and never considered retreat. He did not wait for validation. He did not ask for statistics. He did not gather opinions. He declared and then demanded that his outer world match his inner decision. That is what separates builders from beggars. Because while belief builds momentum, delay builds doubt. The longer you wait, the louder fear becomes. The longer you postpone, the more you teach your subconscious that action is optional. And after enough repetition, you will no longer struggle with hesitation. You will become hesitation. But the man who moves in obedience, even when unsure, begins to teach his mind something holy. This man can be trusted. And once your subconscious trusts your voice, it releases energy, clarity, and decision without hesitation. Let me now give you language that must replace your old excuses. "I'm not ready" becomes, "I move before I feel ready." "What if I fail?" becomes, "What if I never try?" "It's not the right time" becomes, "Now is always right when purpose is calling." "I'll start soon" becomes, "I act now, not later." You are not waiting for the season to change. You are waiting for your voice to grow strong enough to override your fear. And that voice grows stronger every time you choose movement over mood. Every time you act instead of explain. Every time you do the thing you've been postponing. Not because the risk disappeared, but because you decided the cost of staying still was no longer acceptable. Do not ask if obedience is risky. Ask if delay is. Because let me tell you what delay costs. It costs your self-trust. It costs your internal peace, and it costs your momentum. It costs opportunities that vanish when you fail to act. And it costs the version of you that only appears when obedience is chosen over comfort. If you will not pay the price of movement, you will pay with your future. This is not a message of fear. It is a message of ownership. You have been given the power to move. You have heard the voice of purpose. You know what has been stirred in you. You have the tools. You have the time. And if you are still waiting, it is not for God to act. It is for you to obey. Say this aloud now. Say it with weight. Say it to your subconscious. Say it to your fear. The cost of waiting is too high. I obey my call without hesitation. Again, the cost of waiting is too high. I obey my call without hesitation. This must become your creed. This must become your lens. From now on, the only question you ask is not, what will it cost to move? But what will it cost me if I don't? And the answer is always everything. You are not too late, but you are out of time to wait. Now move. Most men misunderstand confidence. They wait to feel it. They pray to receive it. They hope it will rise within them when the moment demands it. But let me tell you now, confidence is not a feeling. It is a reward, and it is not given. It is earned. Not from others, not from success, but from the only voice that ever mattered, your own. Confidence is built through obedience. When you say you will do something, and you do it, your subconscious takes note. It writes a tally. It begins to listen. And if you do this once, then again, your mind begins to conclude, this man is reliable. And when your mind believes you can be trusted, it begins to obey your commands with power. But when you delay, when you hesitate, when you say you will and then don't, the opposite happens. The subconscious records, he doesn't mean it. And the next time you speak, the inner world resists. Not because you are weak, but because you've trained your mind to doubt your own voice. The man who obeys his internal instruction, who acts without excuse, who finishes what he starts, builds his own authority. He no longer begs for motivation. He no longer requires external belief. His mind and body begin to respond automatically because they trust him. This is not magic. It is mechanical. It is the product of what I call the law of cosmic habit force. This law states that whatever you repeat with belief, intention, and consistency will eventually become automatic. And once automatic, it becomes identity. You are no longer trying to be the man. You are the man because your behavior has proven your declaration. Let me give you a name for this process. Stacked self-evidence. Each day, you obey. You take one action that aligns with your chief aim, your identity script, your inner instruction. You do not wait until you feel like it. You do not negotiate with mood. You obey. And when you obey, you record it. One sentence, today I did what I said I would, another the next day, and another. 30 days later, you look back and you have 36 proofs that you are not becoming confident, you are becoming trustworthy. That is what confidence is. Trust in yourself earned through obedience. Do not look for it in applause. Do not seek it in feelings. Do not expect it to rise simply because you want it. Build it, and build it one obedient action at a time. The man who says, I'll try and fails to act has no power. The man who says, I will and then moves, even if the step is small, even if the outcome is uncertain, is already ahead of 99 out of 100 men because he has begun to build internal momentum. And that momentum, once it gains rhythm, becomes harder to stop than to sustain. I must tell you something plainly. You will never feel ready. Readiness is not a prerequisite of greatness. It is a result of movement. And if you delay until you feel it, you will train yourself to never begin. Obedience must become your new foundation. The minute you hear the voice, you act. The moment the instruction comes, you begin. You do not explain. You do not seek permission. You do not ask whether it is the right time. You declare, I obey. You confirm, I act. You complete, I finish. And by doing so, you become the man your mind trusts. This is not for the faint-hearted. This is not for the emotional. This is for the man who is tired of wondering where his confidence has gone. It didn't disappear. It was never built. Now it is time to build. Here is your discipline. Each morning, speak your chief aim and your identity script aloud. Each day, obey one instruction you have delayed. Each evening, write the sentence, today I prove that I do what I say. Repeat. Let no day pass without this chain. Break the chain and doubt returns. Maintain the chain and you become unstoppable. Let me remind you what I wrote and lived. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But belief is not born in fantasy. It is born in self-obedience. If your mind believes you, it will serve you. If it doubts you, it will sabotage you. Say this aloud now as your new creed. I obey, I act, I finish, I become the man my mind trusts. Again, I obey, I act, I finish, I become the man my mind trusts. Let these words become your foundation. Let them silence every doubt. Let them replace the old rhythm of delay with the new rhythm of command. You are no longer hoping to feel confident. You are now building the identity that has earned it. The mind is your workshop, your sanctuary, your battlefield. And if you do not take ownership of what enters it, what circulates within it, and what is allowed to remain, you will never own your results. Every man lives in the world he has built inside his own head. And that world, whether it is a palace of purpose or a prison of hesitation, is constructed from one material, thought. You must now come face to face with the law of controlled attention. Your attention is your most sacred power. It is the steering wheel of your identity. And if your attention is uncontrolled, if your thoughts are aimless, reactive, and unfiltered, then your destiny is not yours. You may claim to have a purpose. You may speak affirmations. But if your thoughts are not aligned with that purpose, you will betray it in silence, one undisciplined moment at a time. Controlled attention means exactly what it sounds like. You must think only what builds. You must become ruthless with your inner life. Just as a builder protects his blueprints from weather, from thieves, from fire, you must protect your mind from stray suggestions, from unworthy voices, from thoughts that weaken your standard. And the first tool in this protection is the filter. Every thought must now pass through one question. Does this serve my purpose or stall it? That is your new test. That is your new guardian. Every opinion you hear, every fear that rises, every sentence you speak to yourself must pass through this gate. And if the answer is no, if it contradicts your identity, your aim, your discipline, it must be rejected. Let me tell you plainly, you have no room in your mind for contradiction. The man who entertains a thought that weakens him, no matter how intelligent it sounds, is the man who invites erosion into his foundation. The man who permits a moment of doubt to linger has already begun the process of retreat, not in action, but in identity. Your thoughts are not innocent. They are instructions. Your subconscious listens to them all. And when it hears the same instruction more than once, it begins to obey without resistance. This is how strong men become weak, not in battle, but in private. They repeated thoughts that did not serve them, and the mind began to believe it. You are not that man, not anymore. From this moment forward, your thoughts must submit to your purpose, not the other way around. If a thought says, I'm not sure I can, you will immediately say, I act before I feel ready. If a thought says, what if I fail? You will answer, I was not called to safety. I was called to obedience. If a thought says, you've waited too long, you will reply, I was not late. I was being prepared. Every thought must now be answered by repetition of your chief aim and your identity script. You already have these tools. Use them. Your chief aim is your mental compass. When your attention drifts, return to it. Your identity script is your inner constitution. When fear speaks, you speak louder. Let me remind you of what I wrote. The mind becomes what it is fed. And I now ask you, what have you been feeding it? Have you been feeding it the memory of failure, the opinions of others, the comfort of hesitation, the hunger for approval? Or have you fed it your purpose, your discipline, your belief? You must now decide to starve everything that does not serve your command. Refuse entry to any suggestion that would not be spoken by the man you are becoming. Refuse to entertain even a second of the old voice that says, you're not enough. You are not only building results, you are building a mind that can sustain them. And that begins with attention. Let me give you now the practice that will change your direction. Each morning, before anything else, speak your chief aim and identity script aloud. Throughout the day, catch every stray thought. If it does not align, replace it instantly. Every evening, review. Did my thoughts serve my purpose today or stall it? Write your answer. Adjust accordingly. Repeat. Your thoughts must now serve you, not occasionally, daily, not when you feel inspired, always. Say this aloud now. Say it with absolute command. My thoughts are mine. I feed them only what builds. I entertain no contradiction. Again, my thoughts are mine. I feed them only what builds. I entertain no contradiction. You are now the gatekeeper of your mind. And the gate only opens for purpose. No more drift, no more mental passivity, no more thoughts that do not belong to your new identity. This is how you reclaim power, by owning your inner world. There is no transformation without structure. There is no growth without repetition. And there is no obedience without proof. If you desire to become the man you've declared, you must now do more than hope. You must now train yourself in discipline. Not once, not weekly, but daily, for 30 consecutive days, with no exception, no pause, and no explanation. Because the man who does not follow through on instruction cannot command his future. This is not a casual suggestion. This is your proving ground. This is the space where theory becomes law, and belief becomes behavior. You've spoken your aim. You've written your identity. Now you will prove them both with action. This 30-day exercise is simple, but not easy. It requires that you act every day in obedience to the man you said you are. And if you do, you will no longer wonder whether you are changing. You will become the undeniable evidence of change itself. Step 1. Write your identity script. At the top of a page, in pen and with conviction, write the sentence, "I am the type of man who..." Then complete that sentence with no less than 3 and no more than 5 statements that represent the man you now command yourself to be. Do not write the man you were. Do not write what others have said about you. Write what your definite chief aim requires of you. Examples are: acts in obedience even when uncertain, moves with purpose regardless of mood, finishes what he begins no matter the cost, builds in silence and never returns to delay, thinks only what builds him and entertains no contradiction. This script is now your internal constitution. It is your oath. You will speak it daily. You will live by it hourly. And you will prove it through action without negotiation. Step 2. Speak it aloud. Morning and night. Each morning when you rise and each night before you rest, you will read this script aloud. Do not mumble. Do not whisper. Do not read it like a to-do list. Stand tall. Shoulders back, voice strong. Speak it like a king addressing his court. Because your subconscious is listening, and every word you speak with repetition and emotion becomes part of your inner law. You are reprogramming the part of your mind that controls your behavior, not by force, but by instruction. Step 3. Take one act of obedience daily. Every day for the next 30 days, you must take one action, no matter how small, that proves the identity you have written. This act must align with the man you've declared. It must reinforce the direction you've committed to. It must contradict the man you used to be. If your identity says, "I finish what I start," then finish the task you've left open. If your identity says, "I act when uncertain," then begin the thing you've delayed. If your identity says, "I obey immediately," then respond to the inner nudge that says, "now." This is not about scale. It is about integrity. It is about proving to yourself every single day that you are no longer a man of intention, but of execution. Step 4. Log it. After your daily action is taken, log it. This log is not for memory. It is for identity confirmation. It is for internal evidence. It is for stacking your belief with visible proof. Each day, write 3 simple things. Identity repeated. Write the lines you spoke that morning. Action taken. Describe the act of obedience you completed. Confirmation. Write one sentence describing how this action proved the identity you declared. Example. Identity. I am the type of man who finishes what he starts. Action. I completed the document I'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. Confirmation. I no longer need emotion to complete. I act because I've spoken it. Do this every day. No skip days, no explanations, no exceptions. Step 5. Repeat for 30 days without breaking the pattern. This is where transformation is forged, not in inspiration, but in consistency. If you skip a day, you must begin again, not to be cruel, but because the subconscious responds to unbroken rhythm. It learns not from what you believe, but from what you prove without pause. Do not allow one compromised day to become the crack that collapses your discipline. The man who completes this 30-day chain becomes someone different. Not because he spoke louder, not because he worked harder, but because he aligned his thought, speech, and behavior without excuse. The man who does this begins to walk in confidence that requires no confirmation. He no longer begs his mind to obey. He no longer asks others to validate his aim. He becomes self-commanding, and the world begins to follow. Now say this aloud. Let it become the daily creed that carries you through every resistance. I obey now, I act now, I do not stop. Again, I obey now, I act now, I do not stop. Say it when you're tired. Say it when you're tempted to delay. Say it when your old habits try to return. Because you are no longer trying to change. You are becoming proof. one day of obedience at a time. All the delay you once cursed, all the silence you once feared, all the closed doors, the unanswered calls, the moments when it felt like God had passed you by, they were not punishment, they were preparation, they were not signs of abandonment, they were the furnace where your character was being shaped in secret. No great man is born fully formed. No builder begins with the finished tower. Every purpose, before it becomes visible, must pass through pressure, pruning, and fire. That is the cost of being used for something greater than comfort. And if you are hearing this now, it is because you have come through the fire. And the version of you that was once afraid, hesitant, unsure, is no longer in command. You were not overlooked. You were tempered. You were not being ignored. You were being trained to stop needing evidence before you move. You were being taught that delay is not protection. It is disobedience. And the moment you accepted that truth, this message appeared, not because I sent it, but because you called for it with your decision. Now let me tell you, nothing was wasted. Not a second, not a scar, not a missed opportunity, not a closed chapter. Because every moment you lived outside your purpose has now become the fuel that burns delay to the ground. But now you must not hesitate again. The window is open. The call has come. The man who turns back now will not return to comfort. He will return to slavery. And slavery always begins in the mind. The moment you say, maybe later, your identity begins to rot. The moment you say, I'm not sure, you reopen the door to the man you just buried. You cannot return, because you are no longer that man. You have spoken your chief aim. You have written your identity. You have acted with obedience. And every aligned action has summoned a new force within you. This is the emergence of what I called the other self. The other self is not imagination. It is not fantasy. It is not performance. It is the spiritual man inside you who appears only when you obey without condition. It is the voice you once buried beneath hesitation. It is the decision maker, the builder, the finisher, the commander. Most men never meet him because they never move long enough in obedience to awaken him. But you have. The moment you said no more delay, he stood up. The moment you acted before you felt ready, he leaned forward. The moment you began to repeat your identity, write your proof, and obey your call daily, he came into view. And he will not leave unless you choose to stop. You must now allow this other self to take over. He does not wait. He does not explain. He does not ask again. He leads. And the more you let him lead, the more you realize this is who you were always becoming. You do not need the old self anymore, the one who made excuses, the one who waited for another sign, the one who started and stopped and then started again. That man is gone. You were not late. You were becoming. And now that you have become, you must finish. Let me speak to the man you now are. Let this be your final identity declaration, not a wish, not a hope. A command spoken into the foundation of your being. I am the man who leads himself. I move when called. I rise without fear. I obey without hesitation. I finish what I start. I do not delay. Say it again. I am the man who leads himself. I move when called. I rise without fear. I obey without hesitation. I finish what I start. I do not delay. These words are no longer aspirations. They are your new law. From this moment forward, you lead, you act, you obey, you build, you do not explain, you do not wait, and you do not stop. This is the moment where your past becomes your testimony. This is the moment where your action becomes louder than your doubt. This is the moment where the world begins to adjust, because you have adjusted the standard. Say this now, with power. Let it be your closing affirmation, your anchor, and your vow. I was not too late, I was becoming. And now that I have arrived, I will not stop. Once more, I was not too late, I was becoming. And now that I have arrived, I will not stop. You are no longer waiting to become. you have become. Now go finish what you were called to build.